fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my God!
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome to Simspeed TV. Welcome here to the Red Bull Ring Spielberg for round one of what's going to be a short, sharp, and hopefully very exciting Ozicar F3 Series. In some way reminiscent of the S5000 Tasman Cup or some other, short trophy-style championships. Round one of three. Means every race, every point, every battle is going to count, and hopefully we get some really good retention. We see the same drivers week to week to week. That would be an absolute delight. All of them, of course, going to be broadcast here on Simspeed TV. Set your watch, set your calendar, whatever. Over 3 weeks, 3 rounds. This is round number 1. So we're racing in that F3, of course, so faster than the Skip Barber car by quite some margin. It's quite a rapid car, requires a lot of commitment to carry that mid-corner speed. It's not particularly huge on horsepower, but what it does have is good aerodynamics and good slick tyres. I'm David Haynes, joined by Jason Fewens for this season. Jason, I'm looking at some of the names that we've got doing qualifying right now, and a lot of drivers that have stepped up from Skip Barbers, but also a lot of drivers that we haven't seen a lot of lately or have maybe come from some other places. It's a good mix of drivers, 25 plus.
Yeah, of course, there's some familiar names in the lineup tonight. We'll go through them as we get the racing underway shortly. But like you said, quite a few new names, which is good because it brings some new blood into the series, and some of these new challenges just might keep some of the old dogs like Cameron Dance, James Chastanoff, and Alex McKellar, keep all those guys honest. Good to see Sean Doyle back taking the step up from Skip Barber into Formula 3 tonight here as well. So just one of a handful of drivers that are making that transition from Skip Barber into these F3 open wheel rocket ships around here tonight.
And this is where they're going to be racing around, of course, the Red Bull Ring Spielberg. I've got a bunch of books from when I was a kid that called it the A1 Ring, and before that, the Österreich Ring. So a lot of history around these places. These hills are alive with the sound of motorsport, and it is a lot of time at full throttle in a car that slipstreams pretty severely. Maybe not so much as the Skip Barber does, but still very much in that sort of pack racing, slipstreaming mindset. You've got a huge run uphill from turn 1 towards turn 3, which is going to be key for overtaking. But I can still see overtaking happening at just about every braking zone around here, the way that these cars run, the way how close things are in qualifying so far as well. And track limit's a big issue in those final 2 corners.
Yeah, qualifying tonight, obviously a lot of drivers that we're used to seeing up the front putting in some quite good lap times tonight, and the top 5 separated by just over half a second. So some close times tonight, which really should lead for some great racing as the laps count down. And of course there'll be some drivers that I can see on the qualifying list that are yet to set a time, so they'll be starting from the back of the grid tonight and working their way through. And what is going to be the first of a short 15-minute sprint race, followed by a 30-minute longer race in typical Aussie car format.
So track limit's pretty stringent around this place, almost everywhere except for this final corner. You've got to keep some tyres on the red and white curb. John Snell so far no qualifying time, and he's not alone in that. I think the driver's trying to carry that mid-corner speed, trying to use the downforce and the slicks to bring speed onto the straights. Extended the track in a couple places and maybe been caught out from that. For example, turn 1 here, very strict, and that was obviously out of bounds there as well for, was it Sebastian Vandal that we saw there between the last 2 corners. There are, as we say, 25 drivers for tonight's race. Only 19 of them have a qualifying time at the moment. Matt Marsh, Braden Segasar, Peter Bowling, Daniel Stubbs all completed 2 laps that were then disallowed, and they're going to be starting deep on this starting grid. That could be difficult because 2 races tonight, and race 2's grid set by race 1's finishing order with a top 10 invert. So if they start deep in the field, can't make their way into the top 10, they're going to be suffering through both races. For race number 1 though, qualifying sets this one, and it is oh so close between Michael Yip and Cameron Dance. Look at that, 3/1000th of a second in the battle for pole. It is on already. David Baz, Sean Doyle, Adam Marsh, James Chastano for your next rows there. Some very, very familiar names from Skip Barbers, including now on the next page, Alex McKellar, then Sebastian Vandal, Cameron Edwards, Scott Harvey, Kirk Broadhurst, Nathan Verney, our top 12.
Yeah, plenty of familiar names there. Jamie Willits, Blake Urquhart, they're off row number 7 tonight. Sheldon Hart and Matthew Harriet off row number 8. Jeremy Bush and John Snell off at row number 9 this evening as we look back deep down through the field. Ira Felberg and Matt Marsh. Matt being the first one not to actually set a time off row number 10. Dennis Hancock, Darren Lassou in typical fashion, not putting in a qualifying time, so he's going to make his way through the field. Braden Sagasa and Daniel Stubbs there, rounding out row number 12. And that just about wraps us up for the cars. We're just waiting for a couple more to grid up now. You can see most of them are there on the grid as we look back. Seems a long way back into the Exeter turn, the last turn there, but it will quickly turn into chaos as they all make their way into turn 1.
I think some drivers to watch that didn't set a qualifying time. I'm seeing Braden Sagasar and Daniel Stubbs both set lap times in the 125s in practice. Be good enough to put them in the top 8 or so, but instead they're starting 23rd and 24th right down the back. They've got a lot of work to do in just a short 15-minute, 10-lap race number 1. The revs are building from the 4 cylinders. The drivers are sitting on the grid, and now they are away for race number 1 of round number 1 of Ozicar Formula 3. Towards turn 1, it is going to be cold tyres for everyone. They need to be careful. Cam Dance was second on the grid, and already he's been mugged back into 3rd. David Baz moving up with a good move around the outside, but there's a bit of carnage in turn 1 up the back. Blake Urquhart facing the wrong way, has to flick spin it around, and as they come uphill towards turn 3, still a lot of those drivers only just getting their feet back underneath them.
Yeah, first of our heavy braking zones, and like you said, cold tyres, cold brakes. So catching a few drivers out there, a couple running quite wide on the Exeter turn number 3. There's plenty of runoff out there, but you are going to pick up a off-track quite early in the process here tonight. And then it's downhill into another heavy braking zone as we have a look at, I think it's Alex McKellar there in number 73.
Yeah, McKellar's been a pretty decent mover so far. Scott Harvey is off the road and digging up the gravel traps. Your top 3, nothing to separate them as they battle for the lead of race number 1. Cam Dance is down the inside here and he needs to get clear, and he only just does, almost forcing Michael Yip off the track. David Baz has come from 3rd on the grid. He's leading the way now and watching 2nd and 3rd battle behind him. Most lead anyone has had all race so far, but immediately down the next straight in the slipstream, Cam Dance makes up a couple more car lengths. These cars are closing big time on each other in the slipstream down every single straight. Lap 1 completed, and your top 3 looking feisty as ever. Adam Marsh has managed to get a bit free in 4th place, with the chaos unfolding behind him, where it is too wide for Sean Doyle and Alex McKellar as they come through there. Doyle's picked up a spot. What are we going to see on the side-by-side replay here? I think this is some of the carnage that unfolded in turn number 1 of lap number 1. There was 5 or 6 cars around. Big move from Cam Dance on David Baz into the lead, and then trying to follow through. Michael Yip is just going to get it, but he bullied David Baz big time. Adam Marsh is with them now, so not a great launch from Urquhart on the right-hand side of your screen. aggressive curves, cold tyres, some drivers starting a little bit out of position back of the grid was probably a recipe for some of this happening. Did he get hit from behind?
No, I kind of watched it live, and I think he just got cold tyres on the inside off the racing line, locked him up, and cut the inside of the corner coming back into traffic. So not the ideal start that Blake would have wanted, but he's back out there still circulating, and he'll be one to definitely catch up to the back of the pack and make his way through and climb his way back up into a reasonable position before this race is out.
A lot of interest in this new championship, in this new format. Sean Doyle's mum watching, cheering him on. Doyle's white knuckle racing teammate Dennis Hancock watching, cheering him on. Peter Wilkinson wasting his podcast editing time watching this broadcast. Doing more productive things. Productive work from Cam Dance on this lap. He's got a second lead and he'd be wanting to break the slipstream, a second and third battle here. We ride on board with Michael Yip, David Baz with him, and look, Adam Marsh, strong work when he was out of the slipstream of the top three to catch him right back. Is the limiter in sixth gear potentially going to be a problem in the slipstream? He almost ran out of rev lights on that thing as he tried to position himself in a way to cut back underneath the two competitors there in front of him, outbrake each other off the track. Marsh slips by underneath. Cool, calm, collected up in a second he goes.
Yeah, textbook move there by Adam. He'd be very happy with that, and as a result he leaves the two cars behind to fight it out, so he may just be able to pull a little bit of a gap here. You see Chastanoff having a quick look under brakes into turn 4, not able to get the move done, so he falls back into line, and they're in car number 54, a bit further down the field. We have in front of me Sheldon Hart there, also trying to get the move done.
So this is a pretty quick track, and these are some quicker cars than maybe we've been used to in Aussie car competition of late. The laps ticking off, and there'll be 7 more to go, and they are sub 90-second lap times. On board with Yip, you saw just a bit of push there, right up behind the other drivers, a bit of understeer. Didn't go where he wanted to in a corner where otherwise the downforce would be really gripping up on those front tyres and the car really going where you ask. John Snell on the pit lane. I think he was going to go a lap down in a second there and just got out of the way of everyone in doing so. Look at them all just following the Adam Marsh train up the hill. This is where he gained those positions last lap. Watching the drivers in front of him attack. Now he's got to be the one to defend. And he does, trying to hold the inside, but he's not game to try to outbrake. And you could almost see Michael Yip lining up to do what Marsh did to him a lap ago.
So while all this is happening up front, you can just see car number 7 there, Cam Dance, just pulling away. Got a bit of a gap there at the moment, 2.5 seconds, as they almost got 3 wide into that braking zone, which isn't ideal. Just adding to Cameron's lead there, but Michael Yip, we jump on board with him now, getting an absolutely cracking view of the battle that's forming in front of him.
Yeah, and the battle that's brewing behind them as well, because as they've kept battling, a whole raft of cars have closed in, led by Alex McKellar, but with Doyle, Vandal and James Chastanoff still in tow as well. It's a big battle for those remaining spots on the podium. Good points up for grabs here. Got to remember that this top 10 is going to get inverted for the grid of race number 2 as well. So anytime you've got an invert format like that, you've got to keep your eye on that cut line. Who's in, who's out. Nathan Verney in the top 10 just at the moment. Matt Marsh has been quick. Braden Sagasar, who I said one to watch coming through the field, and Jamie Willett to right with him as well. So plenty of battling up and down the field. I thought in qualifying, things looked pretty close. A second and a half was covering 15 cars. You know that when you add a little bit of slipstream to that, suddenly everyone's in the same pace basket. It's about the smarts and the racecraft and keeping cool.
Another dive under brakes there, a little bit. McKellar getting the job done there with a good drive. Car off on the left-hand side there.
Howling, I think.
Doesn't look like a lot of damage. Whether he's just pulled over to let everybody through.
It does on board. Just no. Not sure, but he's definitely stayed out of the way regardless, which is good for those great lead and big battle packs we had going on. Like I said, everyone, this is your second place train, and just no one can hold it. It's like a cursed chalice or something. You get second place, everyone slipstreams right up on you, and you find yourself in a bit of danger quite quickly if you make just a little mistake. Dance's lead is looking good though, and he's going to have a lot of work to do because he'd be starting from 10th place in that second race if he scored this opening victory. So there's no easy path to success in this championship. Looking good for this race. It's not going to be easy the whole way.
You see quite a few of those drivers using every single bit of track on the exit there at the last corner, getting quite liberal. Got to be very careful not to get a slowdown, because if you're in this little train and you're relying on the draft, and you get a slowdown, you're going to find yourself almost back with the battle pack behind, and you're going to lose contact with these guys. So, very fine line that a lot of the drivers out there are balancing on at the moment. So that's what you need to do to go quick.
Too wide by too wide by too wide. I do believe they call that the Noah's Ark. Everyone trying to grab a position if they could in towards turn 3. And I didn't see a whole lot of change actually transpire there. No positions gained for McKellar or Doyle. And Baz holds on a second. Dangerous spot to be around the outside of that turn 4 there, as Alex Albon knows well. But so far, everyone giving everyone racing room, despite it always looking a little touchy. Done it by himself there. Sean Doyle into the gravel. Just lost those rears early. Got to be careful on the rejoin there as well. Like you say, in a big pack like that, little mistake, a lot of positions lost. This is about the top 10 here as well. Bernie in 9th, then you see Matt Marsh in 10th there. And Sagasa in, I'm going to call it an Oscar Piastri tribute livery. That's what it is. Would desperately like to be in the top 10. That'd see him get a much better qualifying and grid position for race number 2 than he had for race number 1.
Yeah, that puts Sean Doyle outside the top 10, so if they were to finish as they are at the moment, he's not going to get the benefit of finishing on the back end of the top 10 and then therefore potential front row start. So he's got a little bit of work to do before the end of this race. We still have 4 laps to go in this 10-lap sprint race, as the battle for second is as intense as it has been from the moment the lights went green.
3 wide up the hill, and Adam Marsh ran out of space on the outside. It's back to David Baz and Michael Gipp second and third. Keller, Vandal, Chastano still in the order that they've been for a couple of laps now. I think they're just waiting for some last lap fireworks, or just biding their time on this one. They don't want to get too involved too early. Keller just watching on. Looks like Sagasar did get ahead of Marsh for that 10th.
Which puts Sagasar up into the prime position for the restart of pole at this stage. So while the battle for second is underway on our screen on the left-hand side, there'll be just as important battle at the back of the top 10 for grid positions for where they're going to start race number 2.
Fastest lap of the race at the moment, I think, belonging to Michael Yip in third. He's picked up some good slipstream at some good places. And Cam Dance goes and takes it away from him right as I was trying to take a look at it. Second and third. There's some very good drivers there. Keller, Vandal, Chastano's just dropped off. I think he might have had a little mistake. I think he's dropped off that group. We've now got to worry about Marsh back here and Broadhurst as well. Only driver in the top 10 not having a little bit of a battle is Cam Dance, second and third. Yip nearly drove Baz off the circuit around the outside there. Maybe Baz kept it planted, got ahead, and this is that slipstream in play again. The minute they get up into 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear, oh, contact! The two of them are on each other. McKellar into second. He was watching, waiting for that to happen. Sebastian Vandal through as well, and well, contact between what was second and third has ended off worse for Michael Gipp, has cost some positions to Damon Baz.
Yeah, very wild ride there. Got quite high on the top of Baz, but ended up out in the dirt. As we have a look at car number 8 there, David Baz coming back on. We've got to be careful of that re-entry. It looks like he manages to do it without any too much trouble. Jump on board a VRS replay.
He was holding on to 4th for a bit after this, but then I wonder if maybe there was some damage. So he's around the outside. He just a bit of leapfrog there, up and over goes Michael Gipp. As then into a slide a couple corners later as well. I think might just be wounded, trying to hold on to a top 10. That is going to be oh so tough to do. Some quick drivers lining up behind him. 2 to go.
So Matt Marsh currently in 10th spot. He's in the money spot at the moment. little battle with Nathan Verney, so they have a quick change of position there.
Oh, two drivers around on the exit of 3 here. Broadhurst and Marsh, both lighting up the rear tyres all by their own. Is there oil down? Another one's gone and done it.
Another one out of sympathy.
Yeah, Sean Doyle too. And he's got much more significant damage. There isn't oil down, but everyone's driving like it was. I didn't see much contact. Everyone just being too aggressive, picking up that throttle through the exit of 3. I wonder if just starting to wear out the best of the tyres by the end of 10 laps here.
If we just focus on Doyle for a second, we'll actually have a quick look at some of this new damage model that appears to be on these F3 cars. Almost looks like a bent axle. We'll have a quick look at it now and exactly see how everything unfolded.
I didn't see any contact there, just a couple drivers getting a bit too much throttle, and then they're all doing it. Just three repeats and a problem for Zoyle. That's the
almost
suspension.
Yeah, it's almost that secondary contact as he tried to drive away and just clip the fence again. Just enough to put the thing out of whack, and of course he's end up losing a wheel.
That half shaft wasn't attached, so I think he was one-wheel drive as well. Onto the final lap, Cam Dance leads 5 seconds. McKellar and Vandal now battling over that final podium position. Vandal could be right into the correct amount of slipstream here. Around that top 10, Scott Harvey's in the magic spot, but here's Jamie Willits trying to look down the inside of him for turn 4. This is for pole position in race number 2. This is down the inside. We've seen contact happen here before. The track drops away. So easy for the driver on the inside to push a little wide. Hasn't happened. And Scott Harvey will just hold on to 10th. Here's Cam Dance in the final sector. One more corner for him to take an F3 victory from that pole position. He was challenged in the early laps, but then he broke free of everyone else. He's incredibly smug and pleased with himself, I'm sure, as he takes the first victory and takes that championship lead. Keller and Vandal clean got them to 2nd and 3rd. Chastanos in 4th. Baz and Sagasar. And back to Doyle as well, potentially. Scott Harvey is going to get that 10th place. So coveted to be inside that top 10 in race number 1. Dance has taken the drifting circuit. So just a couple of drivers left. Matthew Harriott and Ira Fellberg, I think, are the last cars on the lead lap. Marsh and Doyle ended up finishing, and Peter Bowling ended up finishing 1 lap down. John Snell's out there 2 laps down, I think. He's going to see the checkered flag 2. And then that will make our race 1 results official. Of course, give us a good idea of what to expect out of race number 2. What did you think out of that first F3 race, though?
Yeah, it was everything I hoped it was going to be. It's obviously a good format that Ozicar have carried across into the Formula 3s, and it seems to work very well. Track selection for this series has been absolutely on point, so it'll be very well suited, very draft orientated. So race 1 lived up to expectation.
Absolutely. So Cam Dance, in the end, only 4.2 seconds ahead. I think he backed off it a little bit at the end there. McKellar had some good pace, just really bided his time, saw them crash in front of him, and then took that 2nd place. Vandal completing the podium, then Chastanov, David Baz, Brandon Sagasar. Big moves through the field from one of those drivers. I said no qualifying time, watch for what he does. Matt Marsh, Nathan Verney, Sheldon Hart, and Scott Harvey is going to get the pole position for race number 2 as we invert that top 10.
11th across the line was Kirk Broadhurst tonight, just 20-odd seconds off the pace. Michael Yip, after early challenging for the lead, in 12th. Cameron Edwards and Daniel Stubbs there doing quite well. Jeremy Bush, Blake Urquhart, Darren Lasue round out your 17. Matthew Harriott, Ira Fellberg and Jamie Willits make it your top 20 tonight. With Adam Marsh the first of the drivers being a lap down. With him was Sean Doyle after that contact with the wall in the dying laps. Peter Bowling was a lap down, John Snell was a lap down, and we saw Dennis Hancock pull into the pits real early to avoid being lapped. So he called it a night, but he'll be back hopefully in race number 2 to make amends.
So, an interesting start, interesting in the middle, and interesting at the end as well. It was pretty cool track temperatures, so I was kind of surprised to see some drivers looking like they were starting to struggle for traction out of the slow corners. But you think about it, it's not many corners, most of them are to the right. I think that back left tyre, the rear left tyre probably cops a bit of a beating more than some other circuits. A lot of slow traction zones here. 3 minutes before they grid up for race number 2. We'll take a tiny break here on Simspeed TV, but the racing continues in not too long at all. Let's thank the people that made this championship and broadcast possible. Longtime Aussie car partners. It's the Locked On iRacing podcast and Prestige Trophy badge and engraving. Their website on the screen there as well, prestigetrophy.com.au. We've seen some very happy Aussie car drivers in past with those trophies. Very happy to receive them. I often ask them where they put them, and there's a few drivers quite proud of their collection. So, take a little break here on Simspeed TV. Not too long till race number 2 of Aussie Car Formula 3 here from Red Bull Ring Spielberg.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
And we're back here for Aussie Car Formula 3 Series. It's Season 1. We're gearing up for race number 2 right about now. Perfect timing as they're about to join the grid. And what an interesting grid it's going to be, because we saw, Jason, everyone in that top 10, if they're in a pack together, can race with each other. The slipstream is very, very strong. And like I said, it's not about, oh, were you a 10th faster in qualifying? It's about those race smarts. Cam Dance had it. Looked like Alex McKellar had it as well. We get that top 10 invert.
Yeah, it was very critical there. Scott Harvey doing the job, getting it 10th in race number 1. So we will see him off the pole tonight. Sheldon Hart by his side. So a couple of drivers off the front row of the grid will be very keen to be up the front. Nathan Verney and Matt Marsh off the second row with Braden Sagasar and David Baz. So we know David's got plenty of pace. So he will be making his way up through, with James Chastanoff and Sebastian Bardell off at row number 4 tonight. And then Alex McKellar and our race winner from heat number 1 was Cam Dance, rounding out our top 10.
So Kirk Broadhurst and Michael Yip just on the outside looking in on that grid. They missed out on the top 10, missed out on the invert, and probably pretty heartbreaking for Michael Yip, who ran in that top 3 for a long time. They're going to get ready, they're going to rev up, and we're going to go for a slightly longer race. Race number 2 is going to be 30 minutes. They're ready to go. They are away for that standing start, and already I'm sure they've got to think about conserving those tyres in a race that's twice as long as race number 1 was. We saw a lot of drivers leaning really hard on that outside rear tyre, and they're going to lean really hard on each other into turn 1. Well, that is huge. Avoiding action already from Sagasar. Is that going to be a slowdown on lap number 1? If it is, it's going to be so painful, and I think it is. He's got to let a lot of cars go. Harvey and Verney, a good start, but already this is positions given away for some huge crunch around these positions 3 and 4, and 3 cars around, 2 tangled together. Now another one. Is that McKellar I saw trapped in that as well? So not a great turn number 3 for a handful of drivers. Yeah, McKellar's down spot, Vandel's down 12, David Baz is down 15, James Chastanoff down 15 as well. So from some drivers solidly in that top 10 have either got damage or they're at the back of the field.
So quite a few losers out of this opening lap. I did actually catch Jamie Willits there. He started out of pit lane. He actually took off from pit lane, had a spin, hit the wall, and then had to reset. So he's behind the 8 ball before they even made the exit of the pit lane tonight. So unfortunately for Jamie, but we'll see what he can do as the race unfolds.
Looking at this here, you got Harvey up the lead, Vernie in second, and then from third on back, everything just super duper concertinas. And I think the chassis try to come around the outside 3 wide there, and always tough for the person on the inside in the middle to know how much space to give. It was just a huge compression of the field. Looking at what happened for Scott Harvey, beneficiary of the top 10 invert, and he just got in a bit deep into the gravel there off of turn 4, and that sent Vernie through into the lead. Shouldn't be too much damage for Harvey there, but his big asset was that track position, and he's had to give up some of that already, and I think the hits are going to keep coming as Michael Yip tries to battle him into turn 3, already leaning on that outside tyre, lighting it up a little bit. It's going to make this tougher. Dances up to second already with Matt Marsh into third. We ride on board with Daniel Stubbs, and he is... I think you'd want to pick the lane of Yip, not the lane of Harvey in this one.
Yeah, they all file back into single rows, making their way through the corner there. So good decision there. Obviously, we saw some contact in race number 1 where the cars tried to go side by side, and then obviously contact was made, and I think it was Yip who ended up out in the dirt. So drivers learning from their first race already, but like you did mention earlier, that tyre wear over this 30-minute race, is that going to be critical? There is a compulsory pit stop as per normal in race number 2 for Aussie cars tonight. Fuel is going to be critical to take, and we just might see some of those drivers get a fresh set of boots on for the run home.
Certainly tyres can change a little quicker on the F3 than some others. It's one nut, but they do need to jack them up manually, so we'll see what happens, if at all. Difficult pit entry here as well. Some problems up here for Scott Harvey. I think he thinks he's been forced wide. There's a lot of other drivers with a huge head of steam coming up on him right here. Urquhart, Sagasar in the middle, and waiting behind them, Doyle and Bush, and more for Harvey.
Very, very lucky to get away with that, because these cars are quite vulnerable to damage, as we saw in race number 1, so we might just jump on board quickly and have a quick replay and see how that all unfolded.
So this is turn 1, in the slipstream to the inside. Harvey has good speed around the outside. There's a little bit of contact just there, just past the apex. Tough to judge, who did or didn't give whom space, but then it just compounded for poor Scott Harvey here. You've got 3, 4 drivers all bearing down on him, and it would be Urquhart all the way to the inside. In the middle there, that is just a little too deep from Sagasar, isn't it?
As the race continues, we are on lap 4 of 20 now, so we are quickly approaching the 25% mark of this second race tonight. Obviously, the F3s making their way around this track a lot quicker than what we are traditionally used to with the Skip Barbers. Of course, 2, 3 wide right back through the field here tonight, so plenty of action happening throughout the field.
Remember, we came here with the Formula V series as well, I think in one of its debut rounds as well, so a big pace difference between these and that. Who have we got around? Daniel Stubbs. Is there back right broken on that thing, or is it just another lazy little loop around at turn 3 like we saw happening oh so frequently in race number 1? Get it up to speed. I can't tell clearly if that's rear suspension damage. Obviously a car that doesn't want to take a hit to any of those corners at all.
Again, virtual racing score replay here, and we're just to see how that all unfolded. When we caught it, actually looked far enough off the fence that I don't think actual contact was made. Just out on that exit sausage, and that was just enough to send it round. So very good job to keep it off the fence. Of course, having to wait for a gaggle of cars to come through, and he rejoins the race just in front of James Chastanoff.
a little bit of sausage, and then he was round like a rissole. It's put him pretty deep in the field. How about this 3 wide, potentially looking for it down in towards turn number 1. Exit. It all gets just then go uphill for a very long run. So you run off turn 1, very important. Cam Dance, though, has finally caught up with Nathan Verney and is back into the lead of the race. Michael Yip has gone upstream with this very, very well too. He's still right in contention there. Verney sandwiching them. Yip was able to stay with Dance in the slipstream early on in race number 1. It's when that slipstream got broken that Dance was able to streak away. Here's how it happened. Oh, way too much curb on the inside for Nathan Verney. Sends him out wide, and that's probably resulted in a slowdown out that wide as well. Just as I say it, Michael Yip is around though.
Yeah,
in a very tough spot.
Yeah, vulnerable spot sitting there on the outside, so he's decided to reverse back into the kitty litter, get his nose out of the potential danger zone as he gets back underway now, but he's fallen a long way down the field. So all his hard work from 12th up to potentially 2nd there in the second race has been undone, so now he's still got 15 laps to get his head down and see what he can do by making some more progress.
Heartbreaking to watch because he was in 3rd and then he had to wait for 15th place to come past, even though he engaged a bit of reverse gear. Just impossible to rejoin when the cars are so quick on that side of the track. Leaning on that outside tyre at speed through turn 1 was Broadhurst. That's the kind of thing that you do it lap after lap after lap. It'll build heat into those tyres, maybe overpressure them, and you'll see that problem. So it's Marsh on the inside, trying to make advantage around the outside. Sean Doyle, remember, good pace, good qualifying for race number 1, that it all came undone. So what can he do in this longer form race number 2?
So we're looking at the battle now with Marsh, Doyle, Broadhurst and McKellar. So that's position 6 through to 9, as you can see on your screen. Plenty of points up for grabs. It is a 3-round series, this short one here, so you haven't got a lot of time to, if you have a bad heat, you haven't got a lot of time to make up some points throughout the series. So it's very critical you choose your positions or your passing opportunities, because as we saw earlier in the race, a little bit of contact and you find yourself at the back end of the field, and then you've got your work cut out for you for the remaining rounds.
Talking about back end of the field, at lap number 1 is where I think Alex McKellar was. Now, he's just made a move around the outside of Kirk Broadhurst. It's up into 8th place. Track limits for that final corner, by the way, so long as you keep a tyre on the white sawtooth curbs, it's all bueno, and I think that is exactly where Alex McKellar was. It looks very wide. He was just within the allowed track limits. Up in front of them, a bit of a battle, Doyle and Adam Marsh, and that is again just going to allow McKellar to close in on them. Once you get into a bit of a battle that lasts for a couple corners, you seem to lose out big time. Who you battle and when and how long you keep your fists up seems oh so important for your race.
Yeah. Oh, another one going around. It's another one doing a great job to keep it off the wall, but of course there will be a train of cars coming through. Jeremy Bush there having to sit there pretty at the moment, just on the exit of the track there, waiting for all the cars to come through. Looks like McKellar getting the job done on Broadhurst for position 8 and 9 in turn number 4.
So, unfortunately spacing out a little bit between 1st and 2nd, but it's really closing up right here in 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. Great little graphic there, but you can see it with your eyes as well. Marsh is not able to shake Doyle. Both of them are plus 15 positions in this race so far. Adam Marsh and Sean Doyle recovering from a rough race number 1. Keller recovering from a rough lap number 1, I think.
Yeah, he'll be quite happy with that to find himself back into currently P8, I think it is there on track. So Alex showing some of that great form he has week in, week out in the skippies over the last few rounds. I don't know whether he's actually got a problem, a slowdown, or he's just decided to save some fuel and conserve some energy there, but he's dropping back in behind car number 21 of Kirk Broadhurst.
I think he just saw that Broadhurst has the pace to catch these two ahead and let him get on with it when Broadhurst had a lot more speed through turn 1. then McKellar was quite able to manage. Talk about Alex McKellar. This is his run from lap number 1 up in towards turn 4. Looks round the outside, breaks deep around the outside. Driver's in front tangle. He has to take the avoiding action. Another driver's off, and then he can't rejoin. Has to back it up because he couldn't just drive straight through the 08, which is David Baz. So that's how he lost a lot of spots. Early goings, trying to recover from that.
Yeah, not a lot of cosmetic damage, so that hasn't hurt his airflow and his ability to slipstream. So that's obviously helped him get his mate back into the top 10. As we look at Cam Dance now out in front by a good 3 clear seconds ahead of Nathan Burney. Doing a good job. Currently sitting in second and about a 3-second gap from him back to Matt Marsh. So top 3 at the moment spread out a little bit, but a little bit further back in the field is Sagasar and Marsh here for 3rd and 4th.
Always see plenty of tyre lockups on the way in there, and you see a bit of rubber getting burnt on the way out as well. All the way up into 6th, then looking down the inside, descending braking zone, always makes it deceptive, always makes the car want to run on. It's easy to lock the brake, both of them pushing the limits of the braking there. It's Marsh and Doyle, and they really ran some pace last lap, both of them in the 1:25.2s, same pace as Dance, and many other people were close to that. So personal best last time from Marsh, and even a personal best last lap around from Nathan Verney in 2nd place as well. So if the drivers have paced it out a little better in this 2nd race, a few of them are seemingly hitting their stride right now. Track temperature has risen from about 22 in qualifying, 24 in race number 1 to 26 now though, so they've got to be careful of that.
We are just entering lap number 10 of 20, so we are at the halfway point. Haven't seen a lot of cars dive into the pits yet, so we've still got that aspect of the race to unfold, which could mix things up a little bit. Of course, some of their drivers potentially opting for new rubber, which could mean they come out on cold tyres. So it might just be a better option to stay around on the rubber you've got on at the moment while they've got some heat in them. But there'll be different strategies unfold in these remaining 10 laps as we see everything fall into place.
Doyle and Marsh, despite battling each other, have caught Blake Urquhart, who's just in front of them there as well. So it's getting interesting for the top 5 here. The pace for Marsh and Doyle somehow is holding up despite this battle, but you can see the kind of speed that Alex McKellar has got to catch them with, because he's gained 10 car lengths or so just through a couple of corners. He might run the same kind of drive he had in race number 1, where he just watches a couple of the drivers in front of him battle it out, waits and waits and waits, and then gains positions when the inevitable occurs.
Yeah, Stella McKellar, they're doing an absolutely brilliant job in race number 1 to avoid that carnage, and of course found himself up into the podium position by just being patient. So yeah, definitely, we spoke about it earlier about being race smart. So McKellar's one of those drivers who shows a lot of patience. We've seen it in Skip Barber's. We certainly need it with all those green cars up the front, and more often than not he comes out in the front. So
oh no! Dramas for McKellar there. He got checked up towards the apex, had a huge slide. I think he's kept that off the wall, but what happened? Doyle around the outside of Marsh. Marsh got checked up, and that checked up Alex McKellar as well. He's now under pressure from David Baz. So yeah, just if they can't run the line through the corner that they initially committed to, any change of movement, change of line in the corner, the cars aren't responding well to, and that can see them into a slide. If you have to lift off the throttle mid-corner, the car will oversteer very easily.
Brilliant view here on board with Blake Urquhart at the moment, currently 5th, so he is up 10 positions from where he started in race number 2 tonight. He does have the car of 74 Sean Doyle hot in pursuit at the moment, tucked underneath his rear wing. You see Sean there making quite a few car links just through the exit and the apex of that last corner, so he is well and truly in slipstream range at the moment.
Yeah, and almost just leaving Marsh and some of those other battles behind him. How's the run through the final corner? All legal for both. Urquhart being very, very careful. Run on the pit straight. Doyle not waiting, looking down the inside. Not a huge amount of overlap, but he's going to try to commit to it. He's got to leave space on the outside, and that's where both of them don't get an ideal run onto this straight. You can see some of the other drivers behind close up. You are going to get value for money if you park your butt in turn number 4 today. Urquhart is still trying to defend the inside. A rather robust and aggressive Doyle. And there was David Baz picking off a spot as well, so lots going on, and they're still side by side.
Yeah, Baz there doing a great job as well after finding himself facing the wrong way into oncoming traffic on the opening lap, so he's found himself back up in P6 at the moment. I did just catch a glimpse of Sebastian Vandel exiting the pits on this lap as well, so he's made his pit stop, so one of the first ones I've actually caught make his compulsory pit stop, so there's a few of these drivers in front peel off. You expect to see him climb his way back up through the field. He's currently sitting back in P20.
It's all really closing up here as you saw how many laps Urquhart and corners Urquhart and Doyle tried to run side by side. A little wide from David Baz there, who's also picked up a spot from slightly beleaguered Blake Urquhart. So Doyle up into 5th. Has been closing in and gaining some positions. There's always a bigger fish, and today that bigger fish might be David Baz. His personal best in the mid 124s, so he's got some pace when it works out, but we've seen sustaining that pace over 20 laps is potentially going to be difficult with the tyre condition. So how you measure that out, 1 lap hero numbers might not be what butters the biscuits come the end of this one. And the fastest lap from Michael Yip as well. He's caught these guys. This is where the excitement is. 5th is changing hands. Michael Yip in 10th, just catching this pack with the fastest lap of the race too. A lot of really quick drivers in the middle here. McKellar still trying to be patient. No such concerns for Michael Yip as he looks down the inside in a place that you don't see a lot of passes happen. It's not going to stick for him.
Mid-pack battle is where all the action is, like you said at the moment. McKellar looking very hungry, and of course Michael Yip there with the current fastest lap of the race. So the back of this little train at the moment is probably where the most action is forming. There's a gaggle of cars in front, so from Michael Yip currently in P10 up to Baz in P5. One little mistake here and you find yourself gaining quite a few positions.
Nose right to the rear crash structure of Urquhart for McKellar. Doyle wants his spot back as well, so again you're going to have a couple battles flaring up as they head up the hill towards turn 3. And Baz looking a little more aggressive around the outside, but Alex McKellar placing himself perfectly down the inside. So any line can work if you commit to it and you make sure you tidily pick up the throttle off the exit. That seems to be where a lot of it plays out. Don't want to be getting wheel spin, don't want to have to be lifting out of that throttle after the first attempt.
Laps slowly counting down here at the moment. We've got 7 to go on the screen, with our leaders still yet to pick. Cam Downs out in front at the moment by just on a 4-second margin, taking the wide line, so he is not diving in the pit lane at the moment. Sure, Nathan Verney doing a brilliant job, still currently holding in second, but Braden Sagasar, man on the move at the moment, making a little bit of ground, currently in 3rd, so he is another potential driver to make his way up, another step up on the podium as these 9 laps unfold. Got a few of those cars in the background. Just using a little bit of that sausage curve to help the car turn. It's a bit of a fine line, because if you find yourself bottoming out on there, you can get pushed out very wide, get yourself a slowdown, which is very, very critical through this fast part of the corner leading into turn number 3.
Looking at the consistency from Cam Dance so far in this run, and with the exception of standing start lap number 1, his fastest lap has been a 24.9, but his slowest lap has been a 25.9. Every other lap has been somewhere in that 1 second bound. and never more than a second off from his best at the moment. So that's what's seeing him stretch away in the lead. His other battles, so enticing, so exciting to watch. Yip just has clearance to swoop around the outside, and then he catches the gravel, spins himself around, and he's got to wait all over again. It's up and down like a yo-yo, but right now 5 laps to go, he's down, and it's going to be tough to recover too much from there. Oh, and then another problem there for Adam Marsh. Jay Kennedy, it's not helpful to just say Marsh, there's 2 of them in this race. How wide was that from David Baz through the penultimate corner as well? Is that going to be a slowdown for him? You do got to be careful, mind those track limits, and it turns out 5 to go, 15 laps already done, you've got to mind those tyres.
Yeah, getting to a critical point of the race now where we're almost in uncharted territory because we didn't actually get this far in race number 1, so that tyre wear and how well you looked after him in the early part of the race could play a large factor in how things are going to pan out before the checkered flag drops in this evening. So it could be a steep learning curve for some of these drivers for the remainder of this series to learn the hard way that you've just actually got to keep an eye on these tyres, look after them, because unlike the skippies and where they're a radial tyre, these are a soft race tyre and the drop off on them is quite severe.
So some good quiet achievers at the moment who haven't got a whole lot of the spotlight inside of the top 5. Nathan Verney still running in that second. He got that reverse grid pole and he's made very good use of it, but he is being caught by Sagasar in this final segment, and that number 16 in 3rd place, almost into the slipstream, and that's where things are going to get interesting for P number 2. Matt Marsh, all on his lonesome in 4th place. That's where he started. That's where he still runs. He's got a good little buffer in front of him, but also behind him. That's him in orange, back a shot there. About this one, Harriet and Scott Harvey, opposite ends of the spectrum. Matthew Harriet started 18th. Scott Harvey started, was it pole or second, on the front row, and now they've got Michael Yip with them as well. All meet in the middle in this battle for the top 10. They are 3 wide coming up the hill too.
Smart move there by the car 02 of Scott Harvey, just getting out of the throttle there, and Michael Yip there I think in the background as well, falling back into line. But battle for 2nd and 3rd at the moment. This is Verney and Sagasar with 4 laps to go. Sagasar's been very patient and slowly pegging away at Verney, making every little sector count, a 10th here and a 10th there. At the moment separated by a mere 7/10 of a second, so well and truly inside this slipstream. The slipstream being very critical here at this track, where it's a large part of putting in a good lap time. So coming good when the money counts.
Yeah, I mean, look at, you got Sebastian Vandel, who's just behind them, 18th place, but he's sticking with because he's in the slipstream of 2nd and 3rd, and he also had pretty reasonable pace in lap number 1 as well. So it's worth a lot around here. You see, anytime they get up into 5th and 6th gear, the slipstream starts working, and those left-handers in the infield, they run through there in 4th gear, so they carry a lot of speed immediately on the straight. The slipstream is effective rather than just starting to pull them in at the end. Swap on for 2nd. Sagasar has gotten it. Nathan Verney doesn't look like he's going to give up on it. With only a couple laps left, I think these two can battle it out for 2nd and still be pretty safe on the podium, because Matt Marsh is 4.5 seconds behind. So they can afford to give up a 2nd or 2 for the remaining laps.
We'll jump on board the virtual racing score replay here and have a quick look at how that move was actually done. Verney with quite a good lead here going into turn number 3. It just well and truly overcooks it, runs very wide, leaves the door wide open for Sagasar to get under the inside, and that was as easy a move as you've seen all night.
Lock up late in the braking zone there, and beleaguered Michael Yip. this is this going to be the same corner again? All on his lonesome, he gets just a little kiss of the gravel, and it's going to cost him either big time or extra big time, and he does get the front left to that Armco. He did it in the pack, and now he's done it all by himself as well. Disappointed with himself because I think he's still got the fastest lap of the race to his name, but languishing in 14th, 37 seconds off the lead, and with a bit of damage to the nose to go with it. There's Marsh and Baz. David Baz has caught him for 4th, and quite quickly, but then he also is a victim of that gravel on the outside there. Doesn't give up on it just yet, and he's going to have the inside for the next 2 left-handers.
Yeah, it's where you want to be. It's all about position placement through this infield, because there is a sequence of left-handers, and 9 times out of 10 the car on the outside has to concede the position, as we just saw there with McKellar and Doyle. Doyle now in front, but McKellar with a very good run out of that corner there. Lap's running out, so if he's going to make a move, he's going to have to commit to it and get the move done on the inside here. They both run wide, as we see Barney waving the white flag as the leaders go through to get the last lap signal.
They know it's final lap, running super close in all of these battles. Camdance's got a 3-second lead. They're battling over 2nd, they're battling over 4th. This is the battle over 6th, where McKellar is in front, has a wiggle on the throttle. Again, late in the race, they want to pick up that throttle a bit more aggressively, and they're starting to get squirmy. Oh, so close. McKellar's to the right-hand side, can defend the inside for the next corner. Got a slow car a lap down that they're going to have to be careful of. McKellar is just going to give him that 1 car width on the outside, almost a little touch on the way in. Doyle ends up straddling the sausage, and Alex McKellar is back up into 6th, at least for the moment. Still places to attack towards the end of the lap here.
I just had to compose myself. Well done, Dave.
Is it what I said about turn 3?
Something about straddling a sausage. Okay.
It's a factual representation of what happened. Okay, battle goes on between Baz and Marsh, and David Baz had caught Matt Marsh and passed him in the last lap or so I think he's got the pace to hold on to that one. Cam Dance has the pace to go and clean sweep round 1 of Ozicar Formula V. Sagasar, pretty decent drive to get that 2nd place. Nathan Verney, composed in the long format, to hold on to 3rd. And Baz and Marsh 4th and 5th. McKellar and Doyle. McKellar's got the skills and the speed to hold on to that one.
A little bit further back, we're looking at Harriet and Stubbs here battling for 12th and 13th, just outside the top 10, but by all means it's going right down to the wire. They are side by side through the last corner. But be very careful there not to get an off track. Looks like he's going to get the move done around the outside. So great job there to get the position right at the drop of the checkered flag. There's Michael Yip there in the blue car in the background, just crossing through. We see Dance, as he did in race number 1, taking that rallycross line, the drift line through the infield.
Yeah, he also left any traction rubber that he had left in the outfield of turn 1, so he had enough left on those rear tyres, and no one's struggling quite as hard as we saw in race number 1, which was a surprise, but maybe they all had their management head screwed on for this race number 2. This is the results of it. Cam Dance takes the win, coming from that reverse grid, 10th, to claim another win. Sagasar not too far back off him, and Nathan Verney losing out on that 2nd place late on, but still a podium, using the reverse grid format well and staying clear of the trouble that befell many others in race number 1 and lap number 1. David Baz, Matt Marsh, Alex McKellar, Sean Doyle, those are the battles we were watching towards the end and the closing laps. Blake Urquhart in 8th, from Kirk Broadhurst 9th, Adam Marsh 10th.
Yeah, Adam doing a brilliant job there from 21st up into the top 10 there in race number 2, so good job from him. Scott Harvey our pole sitter for the second race there, finishing 11th tonight. Daniel Stubbs, a good result out of P12 at the drop of the flag. Matthew Harriott and Michael Yip in 13, 14 respectively. James Chastanoff will be a little bit disappointed with that, I think, after that early incident on lap number 1. He recovered to finish in 15th, so not a total loss. Jeremy Bush and Ira Felberg out of 16, 17. And we saw plenty of screen time from Sebastian Bardell just on the back of that lead group. He was the first driver to be a lap down, followed by Peter Bowling and Darren Lasue, finishing 2 laps off the pace.
Good point, well made. John Snell down 7 laps. Early-ish retirements then for Sheldon Hart and Jamie Willits, who only completed 5 laps, and I think we didn't see Cameron Edwards or Dennis Hancock take the start. Pretty frantic stuff. They are higher speed than the V's or the Skip Barbers, but they certainly still seem to race just as close together. I think, if anything, it just raises the stakes when they go wheel to wheel, when they try to battle through these sections of track. Let us find then a couple drivers standing by, third on the podium for that, we want to call it a feature race. Nathan Verney staying out of trouble, trying to stay consistent, get rewarded with a podium. Knock, knock, Nathan Verney, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hi. How you going?
Better now. 3rd place. Happy with that from the race number 2?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I don't really see myself much as an F3 driver. Probably more F12 or print screen or something. But I did enjoy the reverse grid. It really made up for my lack of qualifying pace. Being able to slot in there around the 8, 9 or 10 and get that, and yeah, it was a welcome sight seeing all the carnage in the rearview mirror on the first lap.
Yeah, indeed. There you go. So tell us about the F3. I actually haven't driven it in a good couple of seasons. How's it drive? We saw a few drivers maybe even running out of sort of rear tyre towards the end of some of these races.
Yeah, it's definitely takes quite a while for the tyres to warm up. I can't remember how the Skippy was around here, but it probably took a bit longer because of the straights taking up a lot of the track. But it's a bit nervous on the colds, and then as it gets going, there's a brief window where everything seems to go well, and then it starts to skip out the last few laps. So it is a little bit tricky, but it's good fun nonetheless.
We're, a third of the way through the season now. After just one night, it's pretty quick and sharp like that. 2 top 10 finishes for yourself, and then we head to some of those Australian circuits. Phillip Island up next, I believe. Do you think that's going to bring the competition a little closer? It's a track everyone would be well familiar with.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is. And like I'm just stoked to have got 2 top 10 finishes around in this field. I mean, you look, there's some Aussie car royalty around. We've got some ex champions for Skippy. We've got Cameron Dance and Chastanoff and Alex McKellar and Matt Marsh, and yeah, it's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of people coming back next week, and yeah, it's not a fun thing to have Cameron Dance in your rearview mirror. So hopefully I stay behind him for the most place. I think I hit a lot more apexes in that case.
There you have it. Well done. Hopefully see you next week. Got any favourite podcasts or anything to shout out?
I certainly do. I would suggest everyone locked on iRacing podcast. There's a new one out today, I believe. So, go and support that. For all your iRacing news and news about what's happening in the Australian scene.
We try. All right. See you next week.
Thank you.
There was our 3rd place getter tonight, Nathan Verney. And of course, if he doesn't fancy himself as a F3 driver, he could certainly take that up as a career as a comedian after that comment at the start of the interview. But nonetheless, we have a good result from him tonight, and he will be back to continue that success again next week. We'll bring our second place getter in tonight, Braden Sagasar. Welcome to the commentary box, mate. As a commentator, I haven't come across you in Ozicar before, so is this a new thing for you?
Yeah, I actually just joined a few days ago, so this is my first race with you guys.
So great to see you up on the pointy end of the podium tonight. It's probably a result that you were hoping for but not necessarily expecting, but a very smart drive there in race number 2 tonight. Very calculated and slowly pegging away, and at the right time of the race found yourself on the back end of the second place and managed to get the job done.
Yeah, like you said, I wasn't expecting anything close to this. I was expecting at least a top 10, but to get a podium, it's amazing, really.
So just quickly, we'll jump back to race number 1 because you put in some amazing lap times in practice, and then qualifying didn't actually register a time. You found yourself back in 23rd and then done a brilliant job to claw your way up into P6. So we definitely knew you had the speed on your side, and that was going to make things interesting for race number 2. What happened in qualifying?
I ran wide in both my laps and got both my lap times deleted, which kind of annoyed me, but I knew starting at the back was a bit safer than starting in the middle of the pack, so I thought if I just stay back here I can make my way through the field, and I did to get 6th place, I think it was.
Yeah, well, a beautiful strategy because it definitely paid off both races 1 and 2 tonight. We did see a little bit of carnage, particularly at turn number 3, so being a little bit deeper in the pack on those early laps certainly benefited you, and of course the good result in race number 1 set you up for a prime position and a good start in race number 2 with the inverted grid. Are you normally an F3 driver, or is this something that you're quite new at?
I've done a few races in the what do you call them? The iRacing sessions. But
strength of field officials?
It's mostly when I do the iRacing ones, it's probably like 1500 iRating, so I'm pretty much in the middle. I'm pretty average, as I would say.
Well, average by your own accounts, but an outstanding result tonight nonetheless. Brilliant paint job too. Maybe that was a little bit of good luck favouring you tonight with the Oscar Pistari paint scheme. That was something you brought into the race tonight, which we commented on and picked up on.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Oscar Piastri. He's I really enjoy his racing style, so I thought I would bring him into this league, and it was good luck to me.
So next week we're off to Phillip Island for round number 2. We are, as we already mentioned, a third of the way through this series, so things are going to progress real quickly. Have you got a strategy for next week, or is it just a matter of rocking up and see how things pan out?
Just rocking up and seeing how things pan out. I'm not usually the person to do a lot of practice during the week. I usually just rock up, do the hour practice, then see how things go through the night.
Well, definitely fell in your favour tonight. I'll throw the microphone over if you want to do a shout out to any of your supporters or any of your sponsors.
I'm a lone wolf at the moment, so I'm just shout out to me and my friend Sheldon Hart. He joined, but he didn't have a good night tonight. But hopefully next week he can bounce back.
Well, definitely great to see some new blood in both yourself, Sheldon, and a handful of other drivers tonight in the what is the debut Ozicar Formula 3 Series. So hopefully this time next week we'll be talking to you again on the podium. Congratulations on an amazing result, and hopefully you can keep that run going.
I really hope so. Thank you guys for having me.
Cheers, Braden. That's second place getter tonight in both top 10 results in race 1 and 2. So brilliant effort and a great championship start for Braden. So our race winner tonight, of course, in race 1 and 2, we'll drag him up into the commentary box, and I'll throw over to David, and he can have a quick chat with Cam Dance.
Yeah, we've kept him waiting long enough, but he's kept us waiting long enough to see him again in Aussie car competition. Cam, race number 1, it looked like it could have been any of 3 drivers. How'd you shake them from what looked like a really strong slipstream?
Oh, I'm not entirely sure what ended up happening, but looking back on the replay after race 1, they all just sort of did a bit of coming together sort of thing where they just dive bombed each other, and then eventually a bit of contact happened. So yeah, it ended up giving me a little bit of a breakaway, and from there it was just all about cruising home and not really burning up the tyres or anything like that.
Tell us about them tyres. How how much management, on the wear, on the heating, because this seems like a car that you can kind of throw into a lot of the corners with a bit of slip angle on it, and it'll survive once, but you can't do it every lap.
Yeah, I mean, it's the tires on this car are obviously reasonably hard. They're able to last a while, so you can kind of throw it around a bit. But if you're doing stuff like sliding them or locking them up or anything like that, which this track's very, very easy to do at, it's certainly a one-way trip to ending up falling back down the field if you're not too careful. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. Obviously, the longer races, you do need to manage them a little bit, but in this sort of case, it wasn't too bad.
And what about that reverse grid race? Starting out of 10th, a lot of work to do, but knowing that you had plenty of laps to do it.
Yeah, I mean, main thing was just pretty much try and get as best startup as possible and try and keep out of trouble. Obviously, you had a little bit of contact with some of the guys on the way into turn 2 where there was a little bit of a checkup, and I saw that I wondered if I'd possibly front wing damage, but didn't in the end, so it was not too bad, and I was just kind of praying that I actually didn't, because I wasn't sure what the pace was going to be like. So it ended up being no damage, thankfully, but it was just all about trying to move forward as quickly as possible and avoid having too much dirty air to worry about and possibly overheating the tyres.
Off to the best start. How are things going to go across the final 2 rounds?
Not entirely sure. Obviously, both tracks actually not too bad as far as the schedule's concerned. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, haven't really driven this car a hell of a lot around those 2 tracks recently, or even for that matter, I don't think I've driven it all year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, I like my open wheelers and downforce stuff. So yeah, looking forward to it and seeing what happens.
Huge run onto that pit straight at Phillip Island. Maybe even stronger slipstream around there than we saw here.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, obviously this track's quite draft intense with the fact you can get very, very close to each other, and there's basically almost no real technical sections to try and break away. So it's very, very all about being smart and just playing with your head. But it's just going to be very, very interesting to see what Phillip Island's going to be like. Obviously, you've got that massive run from pretty much MG all the way to what's going to be effectively turn 2 as a slipstream opportunity. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens and what sort of racecraft and battling is going to happen on the way down towards turn 1 and 2.
Well, we look forward to seeing you next week. Anything other than a clean sweep's going to look like a failure after today. Cheers, Cuzzy.
Yeah, hopefully we can clean sweep it again, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, did look like there was a lot of chance out there, and a lot of it came down to the racecraft in the packs and in the slipstream. And as I say, see you next week, Cam.
Yeah, we'll do.
All right, round 2, Phillip Island next week, 16th of December here in Ozicar Formula 3. Bound to be an absolute stunning location and a track very, very well suited to these open wheel high downforce cars. A lot of undulation here at Phillip Island and a lot of off-camber corners as well, so should make for some very interesting racing. A couple of opportunities there throughout the track to go 2x2, so no doubt we'll see another repeat of what we saw tonight, where a lot of the cars are side by side, and of course some great coverage here on Simspeed TV.
Yeah, looking forward to the ocean, the penguins, and the racing next week on Simspeed TV for round 2 of Phillip Island. And, well, Cam Dance in the box seat, but with a lot to lose. We look forward to seeing you then. I've been David Haynes, Jason Fewens, Jay Kennedy, production, cameras, replay, all of that greatness. Make sure you're subscribed to Simspeed TV wherever you're watching, be it on Facebook, YouTube, or other platforms, because that's where you're going to catch Ozicar Formula 3 Series round number 2 next week. See you then.